Abigail Carla, your Mr. Law 2025.
And my name is Anthony Simons, your Mr. Law 2025.
And it is indeed our pleasure to welcome you to this year's staging of Get Ready for Law School.
Whether you're excited, nervous, the important thing is you're here. Because today is all about equipping you with the tools, clarity, and the confidence you need to succeed in your journey to your LET.
And with the first semester almost behind you, you are now standing at the cusp of a new chapter. One that demands not just academic skill, but heightened discipline, professionalism, and confidence.
And now we'll be hearing from Dr. Christopher Malcom, so now if you'll allow me to introduce him. So Dr. Christopher Malcom was born on the 15th of October 1969. He's a former Attorney General of the British Virgin Islands. He is also a partner at Malcom Gordon Attorneys at Law in Jamaica. As of the 1st of September 2025, he serves as the principal of the Norman Manley Law School, a fellow and former chair of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, the Caribbean branch. He additionally holds the position of Secretary General of the Jamaica International Arbitration Center. Dr. Malcom earned his LLB from the University of the West Indies and completed his legal training at the Norman Manley Law School. He later obtained his doctorate from Queen Mary University of London. He is admitted to practice law in Jamaica, the British Virgin Islands, Dominica, St. Lucia, and Belize. His professional expertise covers arbitration and alternative dispute resolution, banking and finance, construction employment, corporate and commercial law, and regional integration. Among his published works is the Jamaica chapter of the World Arbitration Reporter. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Christopher Malcom.
Too often, we're in the business of sugarcoating and telling people nice things that they want to hear. I have never been known for it, and I will not become known for it. Right? If persons are serious about becoming lawyers and doing what is required, and doing the hard work, you need to be prepared for it. And Ms. Lumley is going to tell you that those of you who think that you're here in the faculty getting all the 4 points and everything, as you're expecting that at law school, as Prime Minister PJ would say at the time, forget it. Forget it. Forget it. Ms. Lumley is going to confirm that. Forget it. This is not what is expected of persons who have an interest in their well-being and who have an interest in moving on to another institution to learn about it and to learn what you need to do. The fact that you do well here, I can assure you, just today, I was in a meeting looking at the number of students who are having to repeat. Now I'm doing a bit of going off into a little bit of tangent. But when you repeat at Norman Manley, your fee suddenly moves from 1 point something million to 2.7 or thereabout $1 million because you're not going to get the government subvention. So put yourselves in the frame of mind and knowing that nobody is going to sit by and say, well, and once you fail a particular number of courses, 3, you will not even be allowed to sit supplementals. Not even allowed to sit them. And if you fail and you're repeating and carrying, and you fail even a single, and these are council regulations. It's not school regulation. These are council regulations, and the council comprises of several attorneys general from across the region and other persons. And if you fail a single course on repeating, you are required to withdraw. The money is not cheap, and unless you have a lot of time, effort, and resources to waste, persons need to understand that you need to pull your socks up and do your work. And you start by doing your work by ensuring that you pay attention to things which are important. Let me again say that the Norman Manley Law School, and this is going to be changed, there's a lot of talk, frankly, about changing it. As at the moment, there's an arrangement under which there's more or less an automatic entry that persons from the Faculty of Law get into the law school. For years, not new, there has been discussion around whether or not that should continue, right? And the voices are growing louder and louder. And when persons see that there are students coming out of Norman Manley, including some with first class honors, who end up repeating because they're not able to or do not put in enough time, then the voices will continue to get louder and louder. We do not want for that to happen. But it does require that persons will pay attention to doing what they need to do. Ms. Lovely is going to give you some timelines of things that need to be done. But the timelines can't be timed. You miss an assignment and you miss it. And they will come at you in a very significant way with timelines that are tight. And you're going to have to be prepared to make a lot of sacrifices to be able to meet those timelines. For my entire period of study, including doing a PhD, there was only one time in my life, once, when I stayed up all night working, and that happened when I was at law school. And that was 30 or so years. I've never done it since, and I haven't done it before. And it was simply because I underestimated the amount of time it would take me to do an assignment, and I literally had to stay up all night doing it. Literally. To be able to meet the next morning deadline, because had I not met it, I would have got a 0 and there would have been no explanations about the extension of time or anything. And the reason you get to that is that you're being taught knowing that when you go to court, if you miss a deadline, you missed it. So you have to get yourself in that frame of mind of understanding that the moment you enter the faculty of law, how many of you, stick your hand up, came to the faculty of law to become an LLB? Stick your hand up if that's what you came here for. To become an LLB. I suspect that you came here for the majority because you intend to become lawyers, right? Stick your hand up if you came here to become a lawyer. Yeah, that's what happens. So what you do know is that the moment you come here, even though you get an LLB at the end of the faculty, it's an intermediary program. Because you ultimately must complete both stages in order to become what you came here to become, right? Agree? So it means that the moment you step through these doors, you should start behaving like and consider yourself to be a young lawyer. Which means that the mindset, the work attitude, and everything else necessary to do well, to become a lawyer, and to ultimately, when you get in practice, do well, you should start cultivating from here. And if the habits are developed badly here, meaning your approach to reading, writing, and all the other things that are necessary, are not well developed here, you will not suddenly have a Damascus Road experience that becomes Paul having been Saul. It's just not going to happen. So persons need to bear that in mind and to understand that there are levels of transition that you need to prepare for, and it begins here. I am not here trying to be unfriendly, nor am I trying to scare you at all. But Miss Lumley, I tell you, and I hear it all the time over there, that at the faculty you are not prepared well enough for law school. Well, this is part of the preparation I'm trying to give you. To say that you have a long journey ahead of you, which is going to require a whole lot of you, and you need to get with the program, and encourage your fellow students to also get with the program, because if you don't, you're going to struggle. And I don't care how good our lecturers over here. I used to lecture here for a long time, so I kind of understand what happens here as well. It doesn't matter how good your lecturers are here, how caring they are, or whatever else they do. The moment you cross the Rubicon, you get into something different, and you're going to have to deal with that, and that's what is going to be necessary for you to complete anyway. So I'm suggesting that attitude of, expecting A, B, C, and that at the Norman Manley Law School, unlike here, or perhaps like here in the way, we have both full-time persons as tutors. We call everybody there tutors, not lecturers, right? And we have associate tutors. The majority, we have, let's say 20, just call it as a number, of full-time tutors. We have well over 100 part-time tutors, including the Chief Justice and a number of other judges, right? They don't come there expecting to have you do anything except function as though you were in court. They don't have the time to sit, and yes, there's going to be guidance and support, but the level of guidance and support that you're going to get is going to bear in mind that they are coming in to teach to go back to their business practices or judgeship or whatever else they're doing. So it is going to require you to get into that program of doing a lot on your own. The sooner you start doing that and getting accustomed to that, the better it is going to be, and the better your transition is going to be from here to Norman Manley, which will put you in the best possible position to perform well. Right? This idea that a lot of persons get into here, that you read a head note and you do this and that, will not help you at law school. You need to learn to read, and you need to learn to write, and you need to learn. And yes, there's AI, chat, GPT, and everything else, but guess what? There are ways to pick it up on your own instead of nonsense. As a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, said over the weekend at a conference I presented at down at Coral or Ocean Springs. Ocean Coral Springs, whatever it is. AI, in his word, is simply, ChatGPT is simply a liar. And if it gives you a lie and then you call it out and say, but this is not true, it gives you another explanation for the lie, but it doesn't apologize for it. Right? And we've seen a number of cases coming out. That in fact, there's a practice direction that just came out from Bahamas about generative AI. In Jamaica we have one, and the use of it and the ethical obligations. There's also a case that just came out recently, as in over the last couple of weeks, in New York, Southern District of New York. Whatever the case is, I presented it on the weekend. And in that, among other things, the case said, look, when you're going in, again, lawyers were sanctioned there, as they have been sanctioned in other jurisdictions as well, for improper use of AI. And it is now at the point where they're saying, now in the court, it is requiring you, the lawyer, to give an undertaking as to whether or not you use AI, how you used it, and that you are able to vouch for its accuracy. And if you fail, there are serious consequences that could flow from it, and I can assure you that the general trend is now going to be along that line to effectively say, I give my undertaking that even if AI did the work, I am fully responsible for it and will fully accept any consequences that flow, including my possibly becoming disbarred as a result of improper use. Those are the implications. Right? So this idea that there's something easy, of course it's easy if you're going to use it, and nobody's foolish enough to think that you're not going to use AI and ChatGPT and whatever else the other tools are. But the question is, who takes responsibility for it, and who ultimately takes responsibility for the quality of the work that you produce, and whether or not something gets mocked up for the client. And it will happen. And if you're here at this stage, and you're not realizing yet that ultimately you're learning how to be a good representative, which is what lawyers are, and that you have an obligation to do it well, then there is a serious problem, and at Norman Manley, you're going to run into that. At the faculty, there's this artificial distinction that tells you that here you're doing substantive law, and at the law school you're doing procedural law. But guess what? Procedural law is substantive law, and there are many decisions, including out of the CCJ and all the places, that will tell you that, and if you don't understand procedure, it has substantive implications. So that distinction really doesn't hold, not in practice, and not in any level at all where you should be preparing for practice. And you are preparing for practice, right? I saw the hands as they went up. So I want us to get to that point of understanding the gravity of what you've gone to, understanding that nobody's trying to scare you or to be rude towards you or anything at all, but simply saying, take care to understand what you're getting into, or have already got into, right? And take care to spend the time and attention necessary. One of the things that we've had that is a problem at the faculty, and again I speak from experience, I have been here, and it continues into the law school, is that there are many persons who do not write well, and they do not read well. Now there's a difference, I used to say here, and we'll say it now, there's a difference between counting words and reading. Reading demonstrates comprehension beyond merely recitation of words, right? There are people who can tell you all the things of the beauty of Desert and how, and make it sound pretty when they read it, right? The poetry of reading it, in and out of books. But in substance, you ask them to then speak beyond the words on the sheet of paper. And you realize that there's a lacking capacity for comprehension, and for doing what you should be able to do, which is to read between the lines and gap fill, right? Now, part of your learning here, and certainly what will be required of you at Norman Manley and in practice, is the capacity to gap fill. So your reading then gets to something which is elevated beyond merely being able to recite words as they appear. It's about understanding the context in which words are used, how it is that you're able to use words to paint pictures that you want to paint, and all of that. And at every level, reading is important. When I, for example, did a PhD, one of the courses I did was learning how to read. Because it's so important that you have to go back to understanding how to read a book. And that is why I tell people that I do not read, nor can I read for relaxation. People read when they want to go to bed and fall asleep. I cannot do it because my understanding of reading is that when I read, I must be asking questions and seeking to answer them and trying to understand, the questions that the author may have asked, whether or not to answer them, whether I would have answered them differently. And all of those are things running through my mind, and I can't do that if I'm trying to get to sleep, because my mind will be racing. Because I'm now exciting my mind to thought. And that's what reading is for me, rather than stilling my mind with reading. Right? I can't do it. So you're going to have to learn how to do that and do it well if you want to perform well at Norman Manley. The other thing is that you're going to have to learn to write. I certainly have marked many scripts here, some of which have included a long page or two without even a comma, much less a full stop. And we're getting that from persons who got straight A profile at CXE, at Cape. How is that translated? I don't know. So you now have to understand that there's something about how you paragraph, how you use long and short sentences, how you do a number of things to paint your picture. And that is a skill that lawyers rely upon. So again, I used to say, and I'm saying it to you now, as you're preparing for Norman Manley, and even while you're here still, preparing for your exams and everything else, learn how to write and to use writing to be able to paint the pictures that you want. But how can you do that? Your starting point is reading, which includes proper comprehension. It is spending time going back to and having your first aid in English right beside every other law that you have. All of those things. Simple English is what it is, it never changes. Right? So it's a process of not only getting into new areas, but realizing that foundational skills are always important at every level. So as you're thinking about performing and doing well at Norman Manley, it is about understanding first principles, about understanding that when you go there, depending on how you're taught here and what you're taught, you may well have to make critical adjustments, right? So you have to be prepared for adjustments. And you have to be prepared for understanding that different people take different approaches. So guess what? If you're able to read well, you're also able to read persons. How they speak, the things that they tend to focus on and all sorts of things. So that again is a critical skill set that you develop when you learn how to read and how to read well. So the thing then is to say, if I were to give you two critical tips about what to do as you're approaching Norman Manley and how to go there, one would be that you revisit the skill of reading. Two, you revisit the skill of writing. And once you've got that, everything else becomes second nature, because everything else flows from reading and writing, right? So make sure that you do that. The other thing is to understand, of course, and I've said two, but I'm going a little beyond. Punctuality and showing up. Showing up is important. People want to see you show up, and showing up requires preparation. Nothing goes anywhere without adequate preparation. You prepare in context, you prepare by reference to what you have to do. For different things will have different levels of preparation required. But everything is going to come back to that. And how you function by reference to preparation, reading, and writing. And I can assure you that if you come with the correct mindset to Norman Manley, you are going to do well. No questions at all in my mind. If, however, you come distracted and unprepared to make critical adjustments where necessary, then you are going to fail. And I'm not here going to tell you about, well, you might fail or you whatever. You're going to fail. Right? And this thing about everybody wins a prize is not so it goes. There's always a winner and there's a loser. So everybody don't win a prize at sports day. Right? And you shouldn't either. You know, if you run a race that you should run and you lose, and somebody else win it. Right? So, and it's the same sense of, while it's not competitive in that sense that we're talking about, you are here measuring yourself by what is required of you. And what is required of you is fundamental hard work, preparation, reading, writing, and being prepared to display the level of humility that says, I don't know anything, I'm a vessel seeking to receive. Right? It is a critical thing to bear in mind. Think about humility in the context of a learning, teaching and learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I said I had to leave. I actually stayed a little longer than I hoped, but I had to be listening to my young colleagues, which is not there. And having said all of what I've said, I'm happy to see you out here, and I'm happy to see that you have remained engaged and are asking questions. They are helpful, and I will assure you of one thing. The entire administration, tutors and so on, are going to see it well.
Yes.
They are, whatever else you might believe, they are. And we are concerned and we care about your well-being. But what I will tell you is that we do not want you to fall into the trap of thinking that you can simply get by. It really is not that. And I'm happy to hear the students who are now there, the graduates, because they're all graduates, telling you what their experience has been. Because that is what is even more powerful than anything that I can say. The other thing I want to quickly say just before I leave is don't take anybody you meet at the Norman Manley Law School for granted. Anybody at all. There was a person who used to be over there with staff. No longer there, but he was there for years. And he worked in records, the archives area, and some other things that he did. And I can assure you, he had seen a number of lawyers who passed through and were now practicing big firms and across the Caribbean and so on. There was nobody who would send in an application to a firm that the firm did not then call Mustafa and say, what do you think about this person? I said, well, I see, but run from that one, or some such thing. People reach out to the people, not always to us, the tutors and so on, but sometimes to other people to say, give me a sense of what you think about that person. There's a sense of humility which is coming through and all of that. Don't take anybody for granted. They will have a significant impact on your life and what others think about you, including whether or not they choose to hire. Yes? So always bear that in mind. But thanks again for the time and enjoy the rest of the